The rain in London, they say, always knows when a scandal is brewing. On the 13th of October 2025, it fell in sheets, a relentless downpour mirroring the tempest about to engulf Buckingham Palace. Few outside the palace walls knew that Queen Camilla, just days before lauded as a humanitarian icon, was being driven away in disgrace, her title stripped, her reputation shattered. But how did a woman seemingly poised to reshape the monarchy become an outcast overnight? To understand the shocking downfall of Camilla, we have to rewind a few days to a moment bathed in the golden light of public adoration. The announcement had been swift, unexpected, and utterly captivating. Queen Camilla would donate a kidney to a terminally ill astronaut. The world swooned. Here, it seemed, was a queen breaking free from the rigid confines of tradition, offering not just words of comfort, but a piece of herself to save a life. The headlines screamed of altruism, of a golden heart beating beneath a silver crown. Camilla became the face of compassion, a beacon of hope in a world desperately searching for heroes. But behind the carefully constructed image, a different story was unfolding. A story of ambition, manipulation, and a desperate craving for a legacy beyond that of a queen consort. Camilla, always in the shadow of the beloved Diana, seemed determined to carve her own place in history, to finally escape the comparisons that had haunted her for decades. The kidney donation was her masterstroke, a calculated gamble designed to elevate her to a position of unparalleled influence. King Charles, ever the pragmatist, initially resisted. He understood the optics, the potential for a media frenzy, but he also sensed something else, a hunger for power lurking beneath Camilla's veneer of benevolence. Yet, he was trapped. To publicly oppose her act of charity would be to appear cold and uncaring, to risk alienating the public he so desperately needed on his side. He found himself on a tightrope, forced to play along with a charade he knew was fraught with danger. The meeting at Clarence House, intended to solidify plans for the Astra Carta project, a royal-backed space initiative, became the stage for Camilla's audacious declaration. Advisors, secretaries, all meticulously arranged around the long table, were stunned into silence. Charles, visibly shaken, attempted to regain control, but Camilla, with a carefully timed mix of vulnerability and resolve, had seized the narrative. She spoke of sacrifice, of compassion, of a Britain leading the way in humanitarian efforts. And the world listened, captivated by her every word. The media frenzy that followed was a whirlwind. Every newspaper, every news channel, every social media platform was flooded with images of Camilla, the compassionate queen. Charles watched, a growing unease settling in his stomach. He knew Camilla wasn't naive. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to position her as the true leader of the monarchy, the one who truly understood the hearts of the people. He cautioned William and Catherine, urging them to remain silent, to avoid turning the situation into a political circus. But the public, swayed by the carefully crafted image of Camilla, demanded more. They wanted to believe in the fairy tale, in the queen who was willing to sacrifice everything for a stranger. And Charles, trapped by his own desire for stability, found himself powerless to stop the unfolding drama. He signed the letter, the royal endorsement, granting Camilla the authority to represent the royal family in his absence, a decision he would soon come to bitterly regret. The night deepened, and with it, Charles's unease. He knew Camilla. He knew the glint in her eye, the carefully constructed narrative she wove around herself. He had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that her ambition was tempered by affection, by a genuine desire to serve the crown. But the events of the past few days had shattered that illusion. Camilla, draped in silver silk, entered his study, her face a mask of practiced serenity. She spoke of recognition, of a position befitting her status, of a desire to represent him when duty called him elsewhere. But Charles saw through the carefully chosen words, saw the hunger for power that gnawed at her soul. He saw Diana, too, reflected in Camilla's ambition, the ghost of a woman who had dared to challenge the established order, to connect with the people on a level the monarchy had long forgotten. He was trapped, a prisoner of his own making. He had sought solace in Camilla's companionship, a refuge from the loneliness of the throne, but now she was using that intimacy against him, exploiting his vulnerabilities to advance her own agenda. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of doubt and resignation. "If this is how you prove your love," he said, his voice heavy with weariness, "I'll trust you one more time." The morning dawned gray and indistinct, a pale imitation of the golden promise of the previous days. A servant knocked softly on the king's door, announcing Camilla's arrival. Charles stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the garden, where the first rays of light struggled to penetrate the fog. He turned as Camilla entered, her face composed, but her hands trembling slightly. He held out the sealed envelope, the royal endorsement, the document that would grant her the power she so desperately craved. "I can't pass the throne, Camilla," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. "Boy, but I can sign a document acknowledging your contribution if this kidney donation succeeds." He watched her as she took the envelope, her eyes scanning the words, her lips pursed in a silent calculation. He knew the letter held no legal weight, no actual claim to the throne, but in terms of image, of public perception, it was a priceless prize, a symbol of honor never before bestowed on someone outside the direct line of succession. Charles wanted to believe, desperately, that love could still conquer all, that Camilla's ambition could be channeled for the good of the monarch. "Do it with your heart," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "not for praise, but to prove this royal family still has humanity." Camilla, tears streaming down her face, embraced him, her voice trembling with a mixture of relief and triumph. "I'll make you proud," she said. "I'll make the world see a compassionate royal family." The 12th of October arrived, shrouded in a heavy, leaden sky. Crowds thronged the streets outside St. Mary's Hospital, reporters jostling for position, cameras flashing incessantly. The air crackled with anticipation, with the expectation of a humanitarian miracle about to unfold. A black Bentley bearing the royal emblem pulled slowly into the restricted area. As the door opened, a collective gasp swept through the crowd. Camilla, radiant in white, stepped out, her smile perfectly poised, her eyes shining with manufactured emotion. Charles, his face weary but resolute, held her hand tightly, unaware that he was leading her to a stage where the very foundations of the monarchy would be shaken. Camilla paused, her voice ringing clear and strong. "If I can't fly to the stars," she declared, her eyes fixed on the cameras, "at least I can give a part of my body to the universe." The words echoed across the nation, across the world, solidifying her image as the compassionate queen, the humanitarian icon of the century. As the operating room doors closed behind them, Charles squeezed Camilla's hand, feeling the coldness in her touch. "I'm proud of you, Camilla," he whispered. "At her today, Britain will see you differently." Camilla responded with a faint smile, but in the depths of her eyes, a glint of cold calculation flickered and vanished. The lock clicked shut, sealing their fate, trapping them both in a web of deceit that would soon unravel with devastating consequences. Inside the operating room, time twisted into a grotesque mockery of hope. The brightly lit space, prepped for a miracle, was instead a stage set for deception. No surgeons scrubbed in, no life-saving procedures commenced. Only the sterile chill of stainless steel and the suffocating weight of a lie about to explode. The astronaut, a struggling actor named David, fidgeted nervously. He'd rehearsed his lines, perfected his sickly pallor, but the enormity of the charade pressed down on him. He was promised a role in history, a chance to be part of something bigger than himself. Instead, he was an accomplice in a royal con job. Camilla, ever the meticulous director, surveyed the scene. Every detail had to be perfect: the angle of the cameras, the placement of the instruments, the lighting that would cast her in the most compassionate light. She was creating an illusion, a carefully constructed fantasy that would captivate the world. But as the clock ticked, a subtle crack appeared in her facade, a flicker of doubt in her eyes, a tightening of her lips. Was this worth it? Was the power she craved worth sacrificing her integrity, her marriage, the very future of the monarchy? The The question swirled in her mind, unanswered, unresolved. Then, with a curt nod, she gave the signal. The cameras rolled. The internal media team, handpicked for their loyalty and discretion, captured the scene. Camilla, lying on the operating table, her face serene, her eyes closed in a gesture of selfless sacrifice. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, a masterpiece of manipulation. Meanwhile, a secret exit swung open. Camilla, shedding her white gown like a discarded costume, slipped away with David. A quick change, a hat pulled low, and she was gone, melting into the anonymity of the hospital staff. No one noticed, no one suspected. The show, as they say, must go on. Charles, standing vigil outside the operating room, felt a surge of pride. He imagined Camilla inside, bravely enduring the pain, giving a part of herself to save a life. He was wrong, of course, terribly, irrevocably wrong. The phone ringing in his pocket was a discordant note in the symphony of self-deception. A private number, a voice raspy with greed, David demanding the rest of his payment. The words hit Charles like a physical blow. "Mrs. Camilla!" I followed the script exactly. "All the images are perfect, but the remaining payment, you promised to transfer it today. I need confirmation to rest easy." The world tilted on its axis. The blood drained from Charles's face. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. He could only stand there, paralyzed by the horrifying truth. The compassionate queen, the humanitarian icon, was a fraud. The red light above the operating room flickered and died. The door swung open, revealing an empty room, a spotless bed, instruments untouched. Only the kidney donation certificate lay on the table, a damning testament to Camilla's treachery. Charles stumbled inside, his mind reeling. He picked up the certificate, the signature mocking him with its elegant flourish. He had been played, manipulated, betrayed in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. The carefully constructed facade of the monarchy crumbled around him. The future he had envisioned, the legacy he had so desperately sought, lay in ruins, shattered by the ambition of the woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted. The rain, relentless and unforgiving, continued to fall, washing away the last vestiges of hope, leaving behind only the bitter taste of betrayal.